Good evening, everyone. I'd like to officially call this June 5th meeting of the Mount Vernon City Council to order. And the first item on the agenda is if there are any, we can approve the agenda, or are there any additions to the agenda?
I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Scott. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Deb. Move and second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Communication section of the meeting. Before I turn it over to the public, I need to pass on a couple of things. Auburn fourth graders have given me a copy, or us a copy, and I don't know if anybody hasn't seen it. I'm going to pass it around, starting with Stephanie in the air. Compilation with Bob Campana's project, and that's a pretty cool thing. And I'm also passing out for everybody's.
For me?
Yeah, Community Foundation establishment, that reception that was last couple Thursdays ago for the Betterment Fund. And
I did not grab one.
did not grab one.
So, yeah, thanks.
And so,
Do we have enough?
you do throw, can you pass this one down?
They're gonna pass it.
There you go. We do now. So I was going to pass those things out for general information there. And in the communication section of the meeting, I don't know if I can do this as mayor, but I'm trying to get ahead of some issues that I've seen other communities had where some controversial topic was being discussed and a member from the public would, 10 people would sign up to talk, and 9 of them would turn over their 5 minutes to a speaker to talk about that same topic. So I think in the spirit of open communication, we've got the policy for the 5 minutes, but the concept of sharing that and then rolling it over to one speaker, I think I'm going to start that practice if that is, unless anybody has some strong opposition to that.
So you're in favor of letting someone have the 5 minutes for someone else?
No,
Just
no,
like
no.
the other way around?
Yeah, yeah. So that we don't have a speaker that's,
That now has
Okay,
45
yeah.
minutes instead of
Yeah.
35.
yeah, that is, the intent of this open comment section to the public, I think, is meant to be one person with their comments about an issue that we would listen to and not necessarily answer or solve that time. I mean, when we ask clarifying questions, but Paul, you were mayor for a long time. Did that ever become an issue in your time in Mount Vernon?
Fortunately, no, and I did my best to stick to the 5 minutes.
You're right. Yeah. I just don't want it to be an issue down the road, so I think I'll get ahead of it there. So now we've got enough about all the communications.
Let's shut down that conversation.
Does anybody welcome this to speak before the council about any item that's not on today's agenda yet?
Is Terry gonna? Okay.
You want me on now?
I think it's your time right now. Go ahead, Terry.
Did I share my screen or does that work? I'm not that technical, but I will attempt to. I don't know if you can see that picture or not, but
Yep.
Yeah.
awesome. Well, that's the view from on top of Westerberg Center. So you've obviously all seen that solar
Terry,
canopy.
many of us know who you are, but could you give us an introduction, please?
Sure. I'm Terry DeBorka, Redline Renewables. We have solar contracts with you under power purchase agreements. On top of you at City Hall, which we've had for over 5 years. And then last year we signed one to have an array at the police station as well as the Westerberg Center. So tonight I'm here to kind of give you an update on all three. Just keep you apprised of what's going on, and obviously you've seen it going around. So that's kind of an introduction on me, and I appreciate it. And I live near Des Moines, so I appreciate you letting me zoom in instead of, spending 5 hours of drive time to give you a 10-minute update. So much appreciated. Not that I don't mind stopping by all the time. So I'll start with City Hall because you're under it. We've been there for it's been up and running for over 5 years now, and the good thing is, we had planned that it would save you about $1,500 a year in a lower rate than you have on your Alliant bill. And last year, my calculations are you saved about $2,200 So over the last 5 years, you've saved about $8,200 by doing nothing. by letting me put my solar up on your roof. We are now past the 5-year point, so you do have the option if you want to buy it at any point in time. If you wanted to, this is just for letting you know. You know, if you were to buy it now, this year, the option price in the contract was $52,000. You're offsetting about $5,000 off of your Alliant bill now, so it would take roughly 10 years to pay for itself. So that's an option for you. If you want to entertain that, then we can discuss that at another time. But I just let you know we've had it up and running for 5 years, really haven't had any issues with it. And it's pretty much produced right what we expected. And you're saving more because your Alliant rate went up faster than we had hoped, and sorry that happened, but at least you're kind of hedged against some of those increases. So if you don't have any questions on City Hall, I'll give you an update on the other ones.
Go ahead.
The fire station is up and running, or the fire station, police station is up and running, has been for a month and a half or something like that. So you're saving money over there. Hope everybody sees it and looks at it and, you know, sees it from a distance, doesn't go up and try to mess with it. You know, you kind of dumb to do that at a police station, but, you know, things happen. The Lester Burr Center, it is almost done. We have been waiting for close to a year on a particular electrical panel, the big one that everything gets tied into before it gets into Alliance connection, which has been, I'm sure it's frustrating on your standpoint, but it's very frustrating on mine, because, you know, Bank across the street still gets their loan payments, so it's been there, but we now have it in hand, finally. And I know we've been trying to coordinate with Matt today, so we're looking at the beginning of July, because we got to shut down the whole facility when we do that tie-in. We got to coordinate with Alliant on that. It'd be an outage, and we'll plan for a day of an outage, and hopefully it doesn't take so long. But it's intense. It's the last piece. It's the piece that everything kind of has to go through in order to do it, and it does take an outage. So I think we're talking right around the 4th of July, the 3rd, or maybe a Sunday or something is what we're trying to coordinate. So, you know, once that happens, then we'll have that outage, get everything tied in, and then it'll be another month for Alliant to say, yeah, you can go ahead and turn it on. So just kind of giving the update on where that's at, and glad to see it finally get the last parts here in hand, and look forward to getting that thing turned on and leave it on.
I think we've had some positive community goodwill by the fact that the panels were installed. There was the assumption that we were drawing energy credit from day one, and it was literally at the end of the school year last year when those panels went up so quickly. So I appreciate.
Yeah, that was the intent, was to have those up and running, you know, get all the construction done, which, you know, we got everything done except for that missing part, which Alliant was so nice to tell us we needed. After they opened up the cabinet to them, you gotta replace this, and there were two parts that we had to replace. One we actually did get in December, I think it was in December, got it taken care of, but this piece has been, I mean, you're hearing it all over the place. I mean, it's frustrating. A part that used to, you know, 2 years ago, I'd have within 4 to 6 weeks, and now it's 50 weeks. It's just ludicrous and frustrating, but at least it looked like it was running. You definitely got the shade out of it, so weather protection, and, you know, I'm looking forward to getting it up and running, and honestly generating some electricity, so I don't have to put the note all the time.
Right. Prime parking spots, I'll tell you that. Any changes in the Inflation Reduction Act and, you know, recent legislation, is that impacting our agreement with you at all, or?
No, not at all.
Opening up
No,
again?
nothing, you know, if we did another project in the future, maybe wastewater treatment plant or something, then you would have a couple more options, you know, because you can get the tax credits, or some of the tax credits direct You don't get the depreciation benefit that we do and some other things, but municipalities and schools are eligible to get that and not finished with the rules. But what I'm still finding is that the route that we went here is still the most beneficial because you don't have to raise the money right away. B, you take the risk out, the risk that we just had. If you would have been building this yourselves, you'd have paid for 90% of this already, and, you're not getting any benefit other than shade. So that would be and you're probably paying a bond on it or something like that. So, that's something that a risk you'd have had. And the other risk that you don't have now that I have is that it actually will produce the amount of kilowatt hours it's supposed to, in a year. Whereas, like City Hall, above you, we have 5 years of history. Now that you have the option to buy it, you have 5 years of history. It's working 95%. The 5 years, if I look back, it's produced around 95, 96, 97% of what it was designed to produce. So we know it works. If it was only producing, 60%, well then you wouldn't want to pay the 60% of the price, right? So that risk is, there's some value to knowing that risk and taking that risk out. And you're never obligated to buy it, so you don't have to take on that risk. But it does not change anything in our agreement, our contract, so no impact to you, and just gives you some options if there are some future projects.
Any questions of Terry while we have him on? Thanks for zooming in here and for giving us an update. Appreciate that, and hopefully we'll be looking for future reports year down the road.
You appreciate that. I appreciate you working with me and doing the project, and obviously this picture that's up on the screen, it's one I took from up on the roof. It's not a fake one, although it almost looks like it, but that's a real picture. It's a great looking project, and happy to show it off and let the world know that you guys are progressive and have this in your backyard.
Good enough. Thanks for partnering with Mount Vernon on this project, and look forward to future reports.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Real quick, a question for either you or Chris. I think I heard early on in my tenure here that there was a goal to be 100% renewable power for the city of Mount Vernon for all of its structures. So when he said we could put something over at the wastewater treatment plant or something, is that in the cards, or
So,
did I hear that right?
no, and it's the way that Alliant Energy, it's the way the solar program grows and then how Alliant Energy builds. So City Hall, LBC, police are all built kind of an established rate by Alliant. A lot of industrial users, heavy commercial users, our wastewater treatment facility is based upon peak. So the challenge with solar in that setting is that we would probably have to build a fairly robust battery bank, especially for the winter time, because at any point in that 30-day period that we were to lose solar power and have peak flows, our bill would be based on that peak hour. So we have looked at it. I think ideally, if we could, that's the goal that we have, mindset that we have, as long as the rules and regulations allow it. But for the buildings that can, we put as much solar, for instance, that the LBC can get for our credit there without putting anything back on the grid, which I don't believe they allow right now. So yeah, there's some cards that are a little bit of things that are stacked against us to make that happen, but we are
There
definitely.
is something that we could do.
What's that?
There is something we could look at. You got it right. When we looked at it before, the wastewater treatment plants, it's a different structure, it's a different rate structure. So like you said, you get charged different. We put solar there, not that there's any place to put it. From what I remember, we're offsetting 5-6 cent power. So it's hard to get the economics to work. Now, there is a USDA grant program that we actually are applied for a couple of other cities and schools under the same, in similar scenario. And with the grant, if we were awarded the grant, we could get it feasible. So that's something we could look at, if you wanted to. You're right, at the rec center, the reason we put the canopy up was we needed capacity, to offset 90-some% of what that facility uses. The roof wasn't enough. City Hall and the ground mounted at police station, that's enough to offset its usage. You gotta go meter by meter. You can't put one big field out there and cover everybody. City Hall, we're just limited by roof space, so we're only offsetting like 30% or something along that line, if I remember right. But, we could look at the wastewater treatment plant again and do something contingent upon getting the grant. There's no harm in applying for the grant. And then if we were awarded the grant moving forward, at a place that's feasible. That's what we're doing in other places, and that's a possibility if that's what you want us to look at.
I have nothing to add to Chris's comments earlier, but the planning for the pool, Water's Edge representative knows about an interest in solar, but the payback systems there is not favorable for us in that it's a high energy user, but unless we have a ton of storage batteries, like Chris alluded to, that 3 month or 10, 12 weeks, whatever it is, doesn't make it feasible in the long term. So we're looking at
Your inventory wouldn't make sense because the batteries are not feasible right now. They're getting close, but I would agree with that. There is some, I'm doing looking at a pool. We have one at a pool in Williamsburg, and then we have one that we are looking at in Dallas Center. They're finishing the pool, so they just opened it Memorial Day weekend, so I don't have usage yet. But there are a couple of different strategies that may actually work for the pool. Because I'm going to guess that pool is probably going to be on a 600 rate schedule, not a 400 rate schedule. And so there may be favorable. Obviously with the pool, you have to consider, timing of the usage, because you're only going to use it, Memorial Day to Labor Day or something like that. So you got to keep in mind that any of that sunshine we harvest between Labor Day and January 1st, you got to leave that off to the side because you're not going to get much benefit out of it. But it's something if you would like us to look at the pool and see if we can come up with a strategy, we'd be happy to look at it. And maybe there is, and maybe there's not right now, or maybe there will be. So USDA does have some grant programs that we can take advantage of. You can't directly, but through the PPA we can. It may be worth a shot.
We know you're a resource, Terry, so thank you very much for that offer, and we may be in touch. Any other questions? Otherwise, thank you, Terry, and thanks for partnering with Paul Vernon. Moving to consent agenda. We've got 4 items on the consent agenda.
I had a quick question. And number 2 of the consent agenda is the cigarette license for Gary's. I'm not seeing paperwork for it, but by the same token, I was gonna say.
We never get paperwork for the cigarette
Okay,
license.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something. The other thing I noted was was it Vernon-Lisbon? Their effective date is January 28th of this year. Is that, do we usually backdate them like that, or is that, I don't recall that from the past.
So it depends on what they're doing. Mount Vernon Creates, for instance, is applying for a special Class C retail. They will backdate to the original license date at times when they are just basically.
So they're in like the middle of their.
Yeah, they're amending like a short term.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're.
Mount Vernon Creates, Glenmauer, the local.
Oh,
we
yeah.
have a number of special events where we see multiple liquor license requests from them. So most people just do it once.
Unless there were other questions, concerns, I would move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Scott. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you, staff. Move second to move forward and approve the consent agenda. If there's clarifications, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to resolutions. First one for scheduling public hearing on proposed annexation of property set forth in the voluntary application for annexation with CTM Holdings.
So this public hearing is going to be set for July 3rd. There's a 14-day requirement for the paper public hearing notice. I did include a map, but I cannot discuss the annexation because this is just setting a public hearing date. So if people do have questions, they're welcome to contact me at City Hall. Lori is pretty much up to speed as well, so if I'm unavailable, they can contact one of us anyway.
Just to double check, that July 3rd being a Monday with a holiday.
So-
Still set with that?
Yeah,
For the meeting, or-
couple things, because I didn't even think about this one too. Juneteenth is also a new holiday that's going to fall on your next council meeting, and I didn't think about that because it's not a staff holiday. And then July 4th is a staff holiday, but we're still expected to be here on July 3rd, so that doesn't necessarily mean that council can't move meetings. It's just not one that's typically on my radar because it's not falling directly on it, so. If you do believe or think that you would maybe want to switch that meeting to the Wednesday after July 4th, because it would be Monday, July 3rd, and then Tuesday, July 4th, obviously, so we can establish a public hearing for July 5th. That would just require you at your next meeting to move that July 3rd meeting to July 5th.
We'll address meeting times at some point.
But you would have to
I
establish.
think we got to do it now.
Just, what is the will of the group as far as the July 3rd meeting and that date for public hearing?
I'd keep it.
I'm good with it. Do you have a problem with that, July 3rd? Okay. Then looking for a motion to go forward with that annexation.
So I'll move approval of the, setting the public hearing date for July 3rd for the application for voluntary annexation.
Thank you, Deb. Is there a second?
Second that.
Craig. Moving second to move forward with the annexation. Resolution 65-2023A. This is a roll call vote, and if there are no further questions or clarifications, Marcia, it's all yours.
Turler,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Motion carries. Agenda item for July 3rd. Second resolution for approval is authorizing execution of consent collateral assignment agreement with BBHA and Hills Bank and Trust. It's the old boomerang.
Yeah, this is there was originally 3 investors in the development, and there's been some restructuring of ownership, so through the financing of that, they have to go through and reassign. For us, it's just a matter of the annual tip payments that come to them. They're working with Hills Bank on that. It means nothing to us. We still pay that amount regardless, so.
So it's just who we're making the check out to.
Correct.
Okay. Having said that, I would move approval of resolution 6-5-2023B, approving the collateral assignment of TIF incentives to Hills Bank and Trust.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Scott and Deb. No further questions? Ready to move forward on that vote? It's a roll call vote.
Herman,
Yes.
Turler,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Engel,
Yes.
That resolution passes. Next one, 65-2023C. Bridge repairs, District Project.
The 30-day period is already expired. So the check for $9,093.50 can be released as of tomorrow. But the repairs are done, the necessary timeframe to elapsed, and we can get that out and closed.
I move approval of resolution 6-5-2023C.
Just a second.
second,
Thanks, Deb. And Paul. No further questions? Ready for a roll call vote? Marcia?
Engel,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Turler,
Yes.
West, Yes. Harmon?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Moving on to fiscal year transfers, we've got 3 of them.
Yeah, this is, I mean,
Final.
the hope is that obviously this is the last transfer resolution that we have to do for the year. No. As soon as I say that.
Just give him like 30 seconds with them. Jeez, Marty.
No, so this is, for those that are interested in that home, we're just simply moving money from one pot to another pot. We have to go through this process in order to make that happen.
I kind of want to ask about the $90, but I kind of don't want to take time on it.
Marcia says no.
So, having said that, I will move approval of resolution 6-5-2023D, hopefully the final transfer of funds for the fiscal year.
And is there a second?
I'll second that, please.
Scott and Craig. And no further clarifying questions. We're ready to move forward to that resolution. Marcia?
Rose?
Yes.
Engel?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
Harmon?
Yes.
Trollet?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Last resolution concerning Candlestick Drive curb and gutter project.
The estimate for this project was between $35,000 and $40,000. Bids would be received on June 29th, public hearing and award would be, actually July 3rd, not July 5th. Would be on July 3rd, so, smaller project, but one that's been on the CIP for, I want to say 3+ years now, so.
Other than a date change internal to the resolution, what would you?
That's the first paragraph and the second. Be it further.
I would move to approve resolution 6-5-2023E, the construction and taking bids for the construction of the curb project and gutter project in Candlestick Drive.
Okay, great. Second?
I'll second.
Scott. Moved and seconded to approve that resolution as presented. Any further questions? Otherwise, Marcia?
Trollet?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
Engel?
Yes.
Harmon?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Thank you. There are resolutions for approval. Moving on to motions. First one is the claims list. It was sent out this afternoon. I think it was the most recent one from Marcia. Any questions? So motion to approve it then?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Scott and Deb. No questions. This is a voice vote. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second item for approval here is request for public displays of flags and other materials. Council action is needed. People from the public that
Yeah.
speak to that topic.
You can push the button on the base, it'll turn green.
Do you need me to give my name and address?
Please.
Okay,
Yes.
so my name is Maggie Jones, I live at 402 Second Avenue Northwest. I actually typed up my statement because we've been traveling this weekend, I'm a little tired, so I want to make sure that I got everything done. About 3 months ago, I contacted Paul Turler asking for help in finding a way that the city of Mount Vernon could publicly show support to the LGBTQ+ community. As I'm sure you're all aware, this has been a really tough year for this community and their families due to all the anti-LGBTQ+ legislation coming from our state representatives and our governor. I am part of several LGBTQ+ family advocacy and support groups in both the state and the Mount Vernon local level, and I can tell you that we are very angry, scared, and grieving. Many families are choosing to move, which is heartbreaking to think that they have no other choice but to leave the state and their home. The public showing of support directed towards the LGBTQ+ community is incredibly important right now. Paul graciously took my request to all of you, and the mayoral proclamation in support of diversity and inclusion was made in April. As you probably remember, myself and my oldest child, Ada, who is also a member of the LGBTQ+ community, were here that night. I am so grateful for the unilateral and unequivocal support through this proclamation. And as we were leaving that night and we were discussing the meeting on the walk home, which, by the way, she loved. And I don't know how old you have to be to run, but be warned. She really loved being here. It's 18, about 5 years. She really loved being here. She's really sad she couldn't be here tonight. She's feeling under the weather. She was asking, can I Zoom in? I'm like, I'm not going to ask that last minute. Anyway, so as we were leaving that night, we were discussing the meeting on the way home. She said to me, Mom, if I hadn't known the context of why that statement was made, I wouldn't have known it was for me. And I thought that was a very powerful and very astute statement. So I'm here to ask your support again. My friend and neighbor, Julia and Lauren, created a sticker, it's a static claim that we've offered to businesses here in the community to hang to show their support for the LGBTQ+ community. I would like you to consider hanging these in city buildings as well. In addition to this consideration, we'd also ask you to publicly recognize June as Pride Month, as so many surrounding communities here in the state have done. During the month of Pride, I would encourage you to fly a Progress flag, considering sponsoring Pride events in Mount Vernon if they were to develop, and anything else that you can think of or we can think of together that outwardly show and publicly show support for the LGBTQ+ community and their families and loved ones. It is my sincerest hope that kids like Ada who live in this community can visually see and know that not only are they welcome, but that they belong here. I have done some research on local Pride support by city governments and spoken with advocates at both Iowa Safe Schools and One Iowa, and I'm happy to share what I've learned with you all. But I also know that Lori and Chris have been doing a lot of the legwork too, and so I would, of course, direct you to your local experts on that. I'm not an expert. So I hope you take this request into serious consideration and act upon it soon, because truly the LGBTQ+ community have been asking where is Mount Vernon stand in this, and when are they going to show that support. So thank you.
My name is Julia Andrews, 704 2nd Avenue Northwest, right across from Davis Park. Some of you, you know me as an active citizen. You know me possibly as a business owner. You maybe know me as a church organist. And as of today, I'm a district employee, so I'm one y'all. There's nothing I can say that will really contribute more than to what Megan has said. All I will really say is two things. I'm a pretty private person, and if it was, in my opinion, if it was exclusively about me, I don't know if this would have meant if I'd be up here talking to you. The truth is, though, in January, our state drew a line in the sand. And it's been the first time as a citizen of Iowa that I have felt less than as being an out lesbian and a wife to Lauren. Knowing my community had my back has been the source of tremendous strength, and it's given me the courage to do things like make stickers, like put up my own pride flag, like be in front of you right now, even though this is not my strength. The truth is, when our state has drawn a line in the sand, it would be very meaningful for the community, or the LGBTQ+ community, to have a response and to have the affirmation, as you've already done so through your proclamation and now through concrete action, that we are in fact one of us and one of you. The other thing I will say is I am very private, but this is no longer about me. It's about my students. Dirty secret is I'm Ada's piano teacher. It's about my kid and helping her know where she fits in here. And it's about my wife who moved to Iowa to be with me. I want her, and I want my family, and I want my students to know that they are welcome. And I feel that an outward support through your action could do exactly that. I appreciate your time.
Julie.
Everybody, my name is Lauren Andrews, 704 2nd Avenue Northwest. I'm not there. I work at the University of Iowa. I spend a lot of time in Iowa City, so I'm not like a Mount Vernon local that everybody would know. But the only thing I really wanted to say today that I have to add is that on top of all of this, first of all, thank you all so much for what you've done so far. We are just people. We're just trying to live our lives. Like I'm trying to set up my pool and take my cat to the vet. And sometimes it just makes everything exponentially harder, the daily tasks of things, by knowing that the world is fighting against you. And so knowing that my community, and especially the town that I live in, is behind me, just makes everything just a little bit easier. So I just wanted to kind of throw you a personal anecdote. Thank you again.
Anybody else speak publicly on that comment? On that topic? Kristen, Lori, I assume we have comments?
So I met with Julia and Megan and expressed where staff was at on the subject, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the message. So we discussed that kind of at length. We did ask the city attorney to make a recommendation, which they have, to the city council. The city attorney marked it confidential, so it's a lot of legal. The basis is, as I explained to everybody at the meeting, this is a potential Pandora's box. Now, I'm going to say two things because I'm going to kind of go in two separate directions. So the decal on the flags, as far as putting them on city buildings or putting them up at city buildings, opens the Pandora's box that I, as your staff person, can't recommend to you because it potentially lands you in some legal issues. I mean, you could be fighting a legal battle. That is completely up to you. As long as you know going into that, that is a city council decision. As far as the proclamation goes, without opening Pandora's box, you can, as the mayor, establish June as Pride Month and do another proclamation similar to what we did before and recognize that publicly. That does not start a domino effect because it is basically up to the mayor what recognitions he or she makes at any given point. So proclamation is a yes as far as whether or not that is something that you want to do. Same would be with the events. Now, we don't sponsor outright events, we sponsor through CBD events. You're welcome to use the downtown and things like that, and the same as any other organization, just going through the same process of closing streets, and there's just an application. So I would obviously encourage through CDG because that's where, in a roundabout way, we get hotel motel tax that we cycle or funnel through CDBG. So on those two items, there's some possibilities. On the decal and the flags, the city attorney is in a very long-winded conversation stated to you that essentially this does open potentially for others to ask the question and for making it challenging for the city to say no. Now,
But not impossible.
What's that?
But not impossible to say no.
No. And again, they're doing the same thing that I'm doing. It's probably not recommended, but again, if you choose to move forward with it, we would obviously.
It sounded like Holly, what she said here in her brief, yes, is that we can approve any activity or action that would reflect the views of the city.
Correct. So on that note.
And then we could say we don't accept a similar request if the group does not reflect the views of the city.
Yes.
Which also means then, as the council changes, the views of the city could change as therefore elected.
And she is making a point that there's still a legal argument, regardless of whether or not you do that or not. There's still a legal argument that can be made on the other side about speech. With that being said, the city of Cedar Rapids does have an established policy where they have openly stated what recognitions they would allow that meet
The views and
the
values.
views of the city council. And others have just allowed it and kind of rolled the dice. So as staff, we've put everything in front of you that we can. It's difficult for me to make that recommendation because it's the easy recommendation for me to make, to not necessarily open that Pandora's box. But again, we've done what we can as far as research for you, and then you have to make a determination on whether or not that's something you want to entertain.
Megan, you said you've done some research.
Well, I just had a follow-up question because I want to make sure that I understand, because I did get a second legal opinion from the City of Marion City Attorney. So my understanding was as long as you could link action, so if your action is to put up a pride flag or put up a decal, if you could link that action to a policy or proclamation, that's the line that you're drawing. And then if someone else came and said, well, if Pride gets a flag, I want a flag, then you would have to say, well, you'd have to go through city council, there would have to be a proclamation, like it would all have to be linked to that, correct? That's
So-
what our city attorney is saying also?
So theoretically, yes.
Okay.
So what our city attorney has said is there's basically 4 buckets that these types of requests would fall into.
Okay.
And if done correctly, you've narrowed the ability for somebody to argue or make counterpoints that would maybe not be of the viewpoint of the council.
Sure.
There's still the potential for them to be made, it's just, we're trying to narrow that gap, make our argument as successful as possible.
Sure.
The only reason for me is we would fight, I mean, those legal fees would be ours. So it's just not, it's not monies that I have set aside that are readily available to fight that battle should one occur. As holders of the purse strings, though, you have the ability to move dollars to do that. It's just for me to make a recommendation, and again, it's a hard one to make because, as I told you, I have a lot of friends that I openly support, and these are kind of the challenging recommendations I have to make.
I have a question about the practical applications. So there's a burden in decision making, and the last thing as a member of council that I would want to do is make the job of the city employees more difficult than it already is. Sometimes we can't avoid it, but sometimes we can. So does the burden lie, if we were to support this type of thing, does the burden lie on you to make those decisions, or does it always come back to us?
It should always come back to the city council, number one. And number two, the burden in all of this is making a recommendation in light of what you just heard. That's the burden to staff. On the other side of things, you're not going to burden my staff by moving forward in a different direction. By any means, I mean, that collectively, the only burden here is for me to make a recommendation because I see potential for monetary use, potentially in the form of legal fees in the future. This is no different than any other decision that I put in front of you that has a cost associated to it.
You're doing your job,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that.
Is a decision to support something like this bounded by a time frame? I mean, it's Pride Month. Would the person who maybe was arguing against that or bringing the action be bounded by the month that is chosen to celebrate?
I would, regardless, so this would be my suggestion. It's gonna be a little win for you and a probably a delay on the other side. I would, if I were you, would move forward with the proclamation, given the fact that we are already in June. So it will be June 15th by the time you actually can approve this. So you'll be halfway through the month. So the proclamation in itself and the publicity that you would get, that proclamation can go on the city council's website, it can be posted in many places, and would be very much more specific than the previous proclamation that you did. In the meantime, if the direction is that the council would like to consider requests like this moving forward, is that I would ask the city attorney to establish a policy similar to what Cedar Rapids has done, so that when they are making the argument in court, that it's their argument, so it's not something that I'm doing that they have to try and justify. I'm asking them specifically to draw something up. It's unlikely that that would be done by the end of June, is the only thing.
The overall policy.
Correct. It would be, theoretically, they would have to have it to you in a week for you to consider for that same meeting. You could maybe put something up for half a month, but
I would prefer to do this right than to go charging like a bull. But I think that a proclamation is the first step in however we go down this road. And that, I think, to Megan's point, allows us options from there.
So
And is right.
I think it's appropriate, because the mayor would be making the proclamation. And I think the question that I would be having, Mayor, if I were in your seat, which I have been, would be, is a proclamation supported by council in general? You know, I will say, I am in support of that as the first step of moving this forward.
Good to know. Before I address that, question for Joe. I know CDG, I think there's also CDG members at this table, but I know you were working on a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement offered to businesses to post.
Correct.
Is that,
Oh, thank you.
is the sticker part of that posting, or is this what
So
is the format of that DEI statement?
at these ladies' request, we went up and down the street to all the businesses, handing out these stickers. And by the way, one is hanging in the window at the visitor center, city building, right now. So let me know if you want me to take that down. I'm very proud of it, and was very happy to put it up when I did. So anyway, I went up and down the street with these ladies and handed them out to several businesses. Maybe it was as much as a week later, I went back down the street and handed out our DEI statement that was passed by CDG. So those are out. I see them in windows, I see them around. So if you go up and down the street, you'll see them as well. So not every business has put them in their windows. And when I handed them out, I said, it's up to you whether you want to display it or not, or shred it or throw it away, you know, but no pressure. And many of them did, but I know there were some that didn't. And I've never asked why. I didn't push it. I didn't put my own thoughts into it. I just said, these are available if you want one.
Okay. Thanks for answering that, Joe.
Sorry, Joe.
I miss public comment somehow. I don't know if I can't hear as well as the old setup here, but I did want to tell you there's a couple Pride events coming up that CDG is doing. On June 21, we're having an entrepreneuria with our guest, Chris, who's going to talk about the next 5 years for Mount Vernon. And then June 27, we're going to be in the Methodist Church, and 41 people that do my job around the state are coming here to learn about how towns like ours do design downtown. And I think it's very exciting. It just happens to be during June. It wasn't necessarily a parade. But I didn't get to say it in open comment, so I wanted to say that.
That's fine, Joe. Let's go with Deb first here.
So I was just gonna ask, we as a council made a statement. Was there any feedback received publicly from the issuance of that statement
I was gonna
that
ask-
we made?
I think that I mentioned, you're shaking your head.
Not from a staff perspective, no. I did not receive any emails or phone calls as it related to the statement that was made previously.
Did any council members receive any pushback on the statement?
No negative feedback.
No,
Only positive.
I only got positive.
I did not enter into that proclamation lightly, as I was concerned about
Yeah.
pushback, and fully expected there to be some. But I can concur with everything that I heard from you, Chris, and everybody here, that there was no negative comments, written, text, phone calls, anonymous or otherwise. Jabs in the aisles of Gary's or at Casey's, or anything like that, nothing like that either. So, I was positively impressed by that feedback. So, and I was asleep at the wheel here and catching that June was Pride Month, I should have had this on the agenda ahead of time, then I'm staying corrected. But the spirit that I would do is to continue with a proclamation. I need some help getting it worded here correctly, but, and then hearing the spirit of this side of the table, this side of the table. But to do that at the very minimum, so.
Yeah, I think we have some marching orders. So what Lori and I will do is reapproach the city attorney and have them work on a policy that they feel is defensible in their mind, and maybe use Cedar Act as kind of a starting point. At the same time, the proclamation, we have sample proclamations from all over Iowa that we can, borrow language from. So like I said, to a certain extent, you get to walk out with kind of a small win, and then I do not want to move this fast if this is the pace that we're going, only because I want to make sure that the city attorneys have definitely dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's, because again, nothing may come of it. It didn't the last time, but if it happens to you, I think the worst part, or the thing that can be most detrimental to a positive movement going forward, is going too fast or missing a step and then having it get tied up into some sort of ugly battle on the backside. So my goal would be to make sure that whatever is put in front of the city council is vetted by the city attorney, and they feel fairly comfortable about making a positive argument moving forward. And then if, I'm not saying it will, but if somebody were to push the issue with us in the future, we would be as covered as we possibly could, just from a legal
Yeah, I think that in the spirit of doing it right, which everyone wants it to be done right, as I reviewed this, I felt like this was really the educational part for us to the legalese and to the protection of the city, and that's an important thing as well. And Chris, you've brought other situations to us, clearly none as emotional or as meaningful than this. And a policy in place is always the right way to go, because it takes ambiguity out of the situation. Something as simple as a policy with city fees. It's a very poor analogy. It's the only one I can come up with.
It's okay, I understand.
But that to me means a lot, because for me, it's personal too. When Chris talks about how difficult recommendation this is for him, I understand, because he's got a job to do, and sometimes in our jobs, there's conflict. And so the better prepared we are to make these decisions and move forward in a positive manner, the little bit of extra time that we're going to take will pay off in spades. That's my take.
I have another question if you don't mind. Oh, Stephanie, you can go first.
Well, I was just gonna say, Chris, I appreciate the due diligence, and I will not be at the next council meeting, so I just want to verbally mention my support for either a proclamation or a statement.
Or both.
Or both.
I know that government moves slowly, so I get it. And I also want to say that Pride can be celebrated 12 months of the year. And as you're moving forward, think about ways that you can show that support 12 months of the year. And that can be a part of that proclamation too. And if you do decide to do a declaration that June is Pride Month here in Mount Vernon too, just like it is nationwide, and you recognize that you weren't able to get that declaration in until June 15th or June 30th or whatever, perhaps you can put an extension just for 2023 that we're gonna fly the Pride flag for the month of July. Like in Cedar Rapids, they don't have their Pride Fest until the first, it's always in conflict with Heritage Days, unfortunately. So they don't have their Pride Fest until the first weekend of July. So I would encourage you to consider those things, because while I do appreciate proclamations, I don't wanna downplay that. It's things like Ada saying, I didn't even know that that was for me. And it's also for people who are, I'm sorry, not paying attention to, to the newspaper or to the city meeting agenda notes. They're not seeing it. They need to see it, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I would say, if that is the route that, it seems like we are going, your daughter will hopefully be better by then and will be able to attend the next council meeting. But I would encourage as many people as possible. I think the message that was powerful just from performing arts, there were 20 kids here. As part of that organization that were here. Anyway, that's my recommendation to you, and yeah, we can always sponge timelines. It's not a big issue, but just having that established policy would be the benefit that staff would be seeking from that point on. And
So we can expect in the next meeting a proclamation.
the proclamation, yes, and I will say that Lynch Dallas is really, really good, and they're typically quite fast if we ask them to turn around a response. A week and a half for them to get this one right might be pushing it a little bit, but I can definitely ask them
I'm less
to
worried about
try.
that, because it's gonna happen, and as we've said, let's just do that right, but we can do the proclamation now as the next step, and so that we can go ahead and recognize that Mount Vernon recognizes Pride Month.
Be helping with the last proclamation. Hopefully she or someone from city staff can help with this proclamation and make that agenda item for next meeting. Very good.
So no action tonight.
No, so you would take action on the proclamation at the next meeting, and have that read into the record, and then possibly have a policy review. Otherwise, that would probably be the first meeting in July.
I just want to say that when I ran for city council after 2016, I wanted to do it because I felt like I needed to be making a difference. And right now, this is a way that I can make a difference in our little bubble, because I disagree with what's going on at the state level. And so I have a certain amount of pride in saying that this is the difference. And I would encourage anybody to run for that reason, that to people in our community, this matters, and things at the local level matter.
And to her point, if we do this the way it seems like it's gonna be done, councils change and directions of cities change, so tell your daughter when she's ready to run.
Yep.
How old?
You know how that's all.
18? Okay.
Because,
We're picking up paper.
I mean, that's,
Warning
you know,
you now.
I mean, that's the flip side of this, is what we value may not be what, it wasn't what the council valued when I ran 8 years ago, so
Yeah.
it's.
Well, we,
No, I shouldn't, that's true.
That's
I shouldn't.
evident based upon our state.
It's a good
Right,
point.
so it's just, but
But
it's something to keep in mind that this is something else that we're opening here. And I'm not saying we shouldn't because of that, I'm saying we should be aware of it moving forward.
Complacency always makes politics interesting.
Thank you for bringing it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, maybe not all the wins you wanted, but hopefully you can sense the way that this council is leading, and the staff, and yes, there'll be a proclamation of the next.
Thank you for your wisdom.
Tell Leila I said hello.
So
She's
Chris,
looking forward to seeing what y'all
Chris
do.
Dallas, this is confidential.
Not anymore.
Is it not? In all seriousness, could this be shared with?
Not without their permission.
Okay.
That being said, it did accidentally get to David's in, so,
Well, the press has always been known to hold things back.
so, I would say this, I would ask them to, if I were to ask them for a public version of that, they would probably retract some of that information just because it kind of offers a roadmap in their thought process if they were to have to go to court.
Okay.
But knowing that we're going this other direction on the policy, they're going to have a completely different roadmap, I'm sure, because now they're justifying the other side.
Anything else on this topic? One, number 3 for motion for approval. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your input. Waiving minimum utility fees for 724 8th Avenue North and West.
So, thankfully, we don't have to deal with this very often, but we did have a major house fire. And they're in the process of doing their due diligence on working with their insurance and things of that nature, but they did stop in and ask about our minimum utility monthly fee, which is about $65 if you just did basic across the board. I do not have anything in the code that allows me to waive those fees, so hence why this is going to be called.
Are you looking for 1 month?
Their request is to waive the monthly minimums while no one is allowed to live in the home. That could be anywhere from 3 months to 12 months.
So, that one doesn't sound like I'm not compassionate, because I am. I'm personal friends with them. But when a construction company goes in and builds, they will be using.
So again, they would have to start paying. So right now, we could shut everything off at the curb without water. They can't necessarily flush.
Right.
I mean, so we could shut everything off and leave it off, similar to what we used to do with the snowbird policy.
Right.
As soon as they were to turn that back on, though, then the monthly minimums would start back up because now it's being used.
Which is a different definition than somebody not being able to live there, which
Right.
I'm fine with that, you know, it's.
If they are going to rebuild that house and they need water turned on,
Right.
the monthly minimums would start back up when they need water turned on. If you were to approve a request like this based upon a catastrophic event and a fire, it's not something that happens daily or even yearly. So it is on a limited basis that these would come in front of you. I don't
Yeah.
think that
It's the
you're-
first I've seen it.
Yeah, I don't think that you're going to,
Yeah, I think the last time we might have had something like this would have been the pizza palace.
That was a long time ago.
and the bowling alley was a complete loss, so
Yeah.
that just ended right there, so.
Yeah.
Again, I don't have any issue with this if the water does happen to have to get turned back on, then.
So the motion's gonna be, as long as no one's living in the house or working to rebuild the house, we
As
would
long as there's
waive,
no usage.
no usage. But I would move that we waive the utility minimums for 724 8th Avenue Northwest, as long as there is no usage.
I would second that.
Thank you,
I
Craig. Still got one question.
I would offer a friendly amendment to that due to a catastrophic incident.
Sure.
And the reason I want to do that is so that we don't have just anybody coming up and saying, I'm not going to be able to use it because I'm not there, that type of thing.
Craig, Scott, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I am.
Do you have the wording on that?
Thank you.
Pardon?
Motion on the floor to approve the minimum with the verbiage that was spelled out by Paul on that particular address. We're ready to vote on that waiver. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is TIP financing, so phase one. We allocate the legal here.
Do we do these separately or all together?
We have to do them separately because they're all a different phase and technically different development, but they're all pretty self-explanatory. Essentially, each one of these tables identifies the total amount certified, and then what would go into the LMI account that the city operates, and then what would go back to the developer. If you would like, I'll just run down real quick, with the exception of 8. So Spring Meadow Heights Phase 1, we're going to certify $96,153.10, and $35,540.91 will go to the LMI account, and $59,922.19 will go to developers. For Stormbrook Phase 1, we are certifying $74,172.91. The LMI account will receive $27,357.69. The developer will receive $46,125.22. Phase 2A, this will be the first year, so there were a lot of partial valuations. The total being certified is $30,200.10. The LMI fund will receive $11,243.50, and the developer will receive $18,956.60. And then phase 3, again, another one that is just partial. The amount certified is $11,597.17. The LMI will receive $44,317.63, and the developer will receive $7,279.54. If you look at the top corner of each of these, that will give you the max dollar amount for each of these phases. So Spring Meadow Heights is likely to reach that dollar amount, and actually they're going to potentially reach that before the end of the 10 years. Once that dollar amount is reached, then it's no longer used. The other ones in Stonebrook are borderline. Phase 1 has the chance to get there. Phase 2 and 3, we'll see what the valuations look like next year. So those are the certification amounts that we are seeking for this year.
Starting with first certification of Stonebrook Phase 1. Is there a motion to move forward?
So moved.
Second, and Paul. No further questions? Ready to vote on that one? All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to Stonebrook Phase 2. Reimbursement certification. 2A, I'm sorry.
I'll move that one as well.
I'll second.
Yeah. Motion on the floor for Stonebrook Phase 2A. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to Stonebrook Phase 3. Any further questions? Are there ready to move forward?
So moved.
Thank you, Paul. And
Second.
thank you, Stephanie. Moving second to move forward with solar phase 3. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion consideration tax increment finance reimbursement certification for Springbrook Meadow Heights Phase 1.
So moved.
By Paul.
Second.
I'll take Deb here. Talking about a good year here. We're ready to vote on that one. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Rise 2022 tax increment financing certification for Springbrook Meadow Heights Phase 1.
I like how I put clerical error, even though it's my clerical error that,
Still clear.
Yeah.
didn't work. But regardless, as I was going back through and doing the certifications this year, I did notice that the total value for Stonebrook 1 and Springbrook Heights were the same, yet the payment payouts were like half. So I'm like, that doesn't seem
Something
right.
like
So somehow in my Excel spreadsheet, I got a formula wrong and it didn't add up correctly. So
I
Skokoman,
always blame it, so.
so Skokoman is set to receive an additional $13,372.70, and the LMI fund will receive $7,931.59. This would be a basically a makeup payment for missed last year. So
It's going to catch it either though, right?
no,
Yeah. So, I don't think,
other than I'm sure they were looking at, their 10-year going, I don't think we're gonna get there, and now they're gonna go, we're gonna beat it. So, yeah. It'll be a nice summer Christmas present.
Yeah, right. I move approval of the correction of clerical error for Spring Meadow Heights Phase 1 TIF financing.
Thanks, Scott. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Great. Ready to vote on that motion on Springbrook Meadow Heights Phase 1. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The application number 6 for the police station.
Amount of $93,257.84. That's what they're asking for this time. You have the architect concurring with their amounts. I will say that while we're on the subject of the police station, I did have to approve a change order in the amount of about $4,000 today, Doug. Bad soils, which I knew was probably coming where the garage section is being built, so they'll have to do some over excavation and some strike fittings in order to compensate for what they ran into. So making progress. Some of us would like it to be a little quicker, but they're doing decent work when they're there. So get some of these things squared away and buttoned up, and I think
When they show up, it's
Still looking at December 6th.
you can. I'm that. I think Doug and I are the ones like, why aren't you here today? What's going on? So still a much better experience this time around than in the past.
Still looking at December decision.
They keep saying still for the main portion that they're doing right now will still be in October. They should be well ahead of that. They're just saying it less now than they were before. So,
Jaded there, Doug.
well, yeah, I've seen very minimal people in the last 2 weeks, so for sure. But the soil issue definitely came up, and I'm still confused why they can't do construction inside while they're waiting for dirt work outside yet. So I think that'll be coming.
Got application number 6 for the police station to act on here. Is there a motion to move forward?
So moved.
I'll take it right again, Paul. Motion on the floor to approve pay application number 6 for the police station. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This is the Public Works Goal Surge. The application number 4.
This is in the amount of $199,633. And I will say, on the flip side, they must have done all their training on their first building, because the second building went up twice as fast. And if you have an opportunity to drive out there, they're really nice up there.
It was still winter though, the first building.
Very true.
It's
I'm trying to give you some credit anyway.
I move approval of pay application number 4 for the public works cold
I'll second.
storage building.
All Stephanie, okay. Hustle up here. Great. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Opposed, anybody? Motion carries. Police radio and computer purchases.
So, those that have worked with me for going on the last 7 years know that I'm not a big, end of the year race out and make purchases type of individual. My staff knows that as well. However, when things do make sense, I will bring a request for it. In this instance, through fiscal management, we were able to save not only enough to do this project, but then also offset some of the losses at the fire department, so, and still break even. The radios and the computers are both a 5 and 10-year type purchase. Given what I am, again, have witnessed on the property tax situation at the state level, this year might be a year that we want to take advantage of some savings, go ahead and make these purchases so we don't have to worry about it for at least the next 5 to 10 years. It is a big number, it's $93,647.60 for both. But we do, like I said, the savings is there.
It isn't both, is it, Chris? I thought it was 93,648 for the radios and 23,488 for the tablets.
No, that's total.
Yeah.
It is, okay.
Yeah, sorry about
70
that.
something.
Yes.
My notes were off. And so you're not recommending we split this over 2 fiscal years?
No, because I can't guarantee that we'll have the savings. I mean, there was a lot
Because of the
with
problem.
staff turnover in the PD, there was a lot of things that happened this year in order to make that number feasible this year, and it's unlikely that we'll see that again. So, I think we should take advantage of the savings that we did this fiscal year and just go ahead and get this purchase done.
I might be making this up, but do our fire radios not talk to our police radios?
They do.
Okay.
Um,
Was that at
Fire
some
went
point
with-
true?
was what?
Was that at some point true, that they weren't compatible for some reason?
We've always been able to talk on certain channels.
Okay.
The main difference we have now when we went to the new digital system is the law enforcement radios are encrypted. On many channels, we do have fire, EMS, and tactical ops. And if we have a joint incident, we have, even with Johnson County and surrounding counties, we can go to unique channels for each of those agencies and communicate together. The main difference between fire radios and our radios, or ambulance radios and ours, is the encryption key aspect of that and the ability to do those. I know fire recently went to Motorola, and I think you guys are as well going to Motorola's. And the only reason I didn't pursue Motorola, they're pretty much the same price, and we still have to work with Lynn County and the Sheriff's Office for management of the encryption, and they don't know that the Motorola's would encrypt. I'm sure they would, but they like to keep everything the same from that standpoint, and it's not a big enough move for our standpoint to change from that. So we'll have Cedar County's coming on board, actually, so everybody that's building this system in that we've been on for 10 years now, our radios will continue. I can talk on my portable radio in Des Moines now and reach and talk to our officers back here on our local city channel from that aspect. So it's a good system. That way.
There was something in the back of my, as I was reading through this, there was something that tickled something in the back of my head.
Yeah, the radios used to also, it's unfortunately our painstaking as we've changed and 911 funds have gone down. These always used to be provided through the E911 funding that they've got, and about 3 or 4 years ago, all the money now is being used for the dispatch centers because everybody's home phone landlines have gone away. So the 911 funds are down, and now they're just the money that's available for that is just keeping the 911 centers open for the most part, is what we're told. So our radios are 10 years old. They're end of life from that perspective. And our laptops, the tablets we have in our cars, I was in conversations before the meeting, were probably 8 years. They had a 5-year warranty, and I know we're well beyond those. They've worked out very well from that perspective, so we'll get back in that.
Thank you.
The difference I can tell you is when Doug hands me a radio, he says, "Don't touch." When I I get the other radios, I can actually push buttons.
Awesome.
Fair enough.
Okay. What is the will of the board, the council on the police radio and computer purchases?
Do you want one motion? I will move to approve the police radio and computer purchases.
Jeff?
I'll second that.
Scott? Move the second to move forward with the purchase of the computer and police radios as recommended. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is discussion, consideration of Heritage Days fireworks request.
So the fireworks is moving. I've asked Joe to be here to discuss that, but they're moving to Cornell from the golf course this year. So, change of venue.
I used to like those out of my back.
I know. But given the uncertainty with what is, going to take place out at the golf course, obviously making long-term preparation would make sense to make the move. And to be honest with you, the original letter that went out from the owner of the golf course was July 1, so there wasn't really an option to have the fireworks out there this year originally at the beginning of the year, so.
So there are a couple of things that I wanted to say. When we move the fireworks over to Cornell, it'll be Friday night, right, at dark, a little after 9. They are very clear that there's to be no alcohol, so I think that's something a lot of people are going to miss from Carnoustie. But you can probably, in your own backyard, have alcohol and look up and see the fireworks from many places in town. Also, they didn't want anyone on the field there, and Doug is going to help us maintain that, make sure people stay off the field, and that there's no alcohol up there. So those are going to be the differences with the fireworks this year. And I just think we can still have a lot of fun, and I hope everybody will still plan to come up. Bon Appetit is going to be serving picnic items up there. They're going to start serving at 8 o'clock, and so families can eat. They can sit in the stands, or they can bring a little picnic and put a blanket down in the green area on the others, around the bleachers behind and on the sides, where you'd certainly be able to see the fireworks. So those are the differences that are going to happen, and I just wanted everyone in the community to know it's going to be different, but we're still going to have fun.
It's still fireworks.
So,
All right.
excuse my ignorance, is this at the football field or the baseball field?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's a football field, yes.
Okay.
Ash Park football field.
So will the launch point be the parking lot behind the field?
Well, the launch point is, and I'm not quite sure, it's the same one that they use when they do them at homecoming.
Okay.
And it's the same fireworks vendor
Okay.
who said, he told me he's done that before.
Great.
There was a lot of considerations with the lawyers, and the liability, and that's been ironed out between the fireworks legal team, Cornell's, and me. So.
On the flip
I
side,
tell
I
you,
feel
felt very-
this because I
Oh,
use it
man.
in my yard.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And this is Heritage, okay, gotcha.
Do we understand what we're doing this year for Heritage Days, where and when? Why?
And there's no motion for this, right?
Yes, the council does typically approve fireworks permits. So the difference being, obviously this year is just a change in venue.
Well, I would move to approve the fireworks request.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Moved and seconded to move forward with the Heritage Days fireworks request. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is Board of Adjustment minutes, so Sharon.
That's just for the record.
Okay. Glad to see the attendance. That's what I thought of was there. Okay, moving to Palisades Road construction update. I think that was your meeting, right?
Yeah, so last week on Tuesday, we had a pre-con meeting for this project. It's all set and ready to go. If you put it on Palisades, you probably need a new one. So the project's supposed to start on 6/12. The bulk of it, like the heavy machinery, the milling, all of that stuff will start up about 6/19. They're hoping to be done by 6/20. 6:30 with that heavy stuff, asphalt and all, with a wrap-up of 7/7, they said, for the following punch list items. I sent a letter out today to residents with a map showing project area boundaries. It also explains that garbage will continue and we will mail all those pieces. We also put in there that it's possible that there could be a driveway closure, likely not, but just in case, there will be available parking at OBC during that time. And then, obviously, anyone can reach out to us with questions if there's anything that comes up. Hopefully this stays on schedule, without, we don't, any unforeseen obstacles or any weather.
I do want to point out that the good news is they changed some of the construction process, so we're actually going to save some money and get a better product at the end. They're not going to need as much milling that they thought they were going to do previously. So good news.
Okay.
Saving should be about approximately $20,000 when it's all said and done.
Is that from the contractor or from?
Yeah, so the contractor suggested making the changes. So originally they were going to mill basically the entire surface, 10th all the way out to the middle.
Yeah, and then, so now they're just doing they're not doing from Willow, basically just east of 17.
They're going to go ahead and just overlay that at the surface.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else about Sage Road?
No.
June 12th, 7/7. Mayor reports, reports from the mayor. Two things, this Wednesday on our mayor's Zoom call on disaster preparedness, and also our county people, I think BJ DeVore is on that webinar as well. And the second thing is that Vernon is hosting for community, Boone County Public Health, community conversation on Saturday, June 24th. I attended the one that Lisbon hosted at Southeast Lynn a week ago or so, and they had pretty good attendance, so hopefully we'll have some good attendance for this one. Community conversation, I think they said they're sending press release to you, and they may have an ad request too, but should be something coming to the Sun. Sure. Just approve the ad, just approve the ad this morning, I think. So those are two things, Zoom call on Wednesday and Boone County Public Health presentation on Saturday, June 24th. Any other council or committee reports from anybody? City administrator?
No, other than Lori and I will be out of the office. We'll be at an Iowa League of Cities event on June 16th. And then tomorrow, as I stated before, I will not answer my phone. So if you need anything,
What time's your call tomorrow morning? Get to be out of bed by 2:30?
I have to be at the Waterloo Airport by 5.
Have a wonderful experience.
As soon as I'm done here, I'm going to Lisa drive me to Urbana, where my daughter, who's now living with my dad, is going to pick me up. And then tomorrow, we fly back in at 10 and then do the same thing tomorrow night. So,
A very long day.
yeah.
Well, it's wonderful.
Very cool.
Good. Anything else, Chris? Anything else that needs to come before this council?
I would close with just saying that I thought our mayor did a wonderful job at the recognition of Leslie and Katie Garner on their retirement, and just well done there.
Thank you, and I enjoy representing the city in instances like that. It's what I enjoy to do, and enjoy with your wife, Craig, on Memorial Day too. So again, that's very appropriate. Missed the band, missed the people that the band.
Missed the band.
I guess I've got an excuse. If you see, people let that go. Anything else that needs to come before this council? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.